if we can just form the habit of not judging others or judging people less, and we become like aware of it, right? Like we're consciously aware of it. This is all about awareness. We consciously become aware that we're not judging or we're judging less. That becomes the habit. That becomes the norm. And by putting that out, you get a lot of good back, but because it becomes a habit, you judge yourself less. And you actually become a lot more aware that you're judging yourself, where you can catch yourself and stop it. All right, chapter 1, stop judging. Judging a person does not define who they are, it defines who you are. When you stop judging others, you'll stop judging yourself. When we are born, we are authentic and filled with love, without judgment. But very early on, we learn to judge. It starts small and it grows. It grew in you, and it grew in the ones around you who raised you and taught you. We watched our parents judge people. They criticized the neighbors. They criticized their friends, talking behind people's backs. They criticized each other. When they raised us, they criticized us. They didn't mean to, but they did. They told us what was right and wrong and defined what was good and bad. If we got it right, we got praise, love, validation, and approval. But if we got it wrong, then we were judged, criticized, punished, yelled at, ignored, and in my case, hit. Self-doubt grew within us and we began to judge ourselves. Then we started judging others. We punished ourselves when we didn't measure up, and we looked for validation from others to confirm we were doing things right. This created our fear of criticism, and we began to worry about what others thought about us. We don't like what we think of ourselves, and we're afraid of what other people think of us. And most of us aren't even aware of it. This fear is further fueled by social media, politics, through fashion and style, and through television and magazines. It's everywhere. We learned to cover up how we felt or what we thought because we didn't want to be judged. We learned to cover up who we really were, and we fell into line. Then we started to dislike ourselves, maybe even hate ourselves, and we didn't want anyone to know what we thought of ourselves. What would they think of us if they really knew what we were thinking and feeling? Judgment is a pandemic and it's spreading. As an adult and a parent, I see how the cycle is continuing. Many adults are struggling with judgment and the fear of criticism, and they're raising children who are struggling. The parents are struggling to help their struggling children, and they don't know what to do. Letting go of your past and how you view it is the cure. I really struggled and got stuck a lot. I judged myself. Who wouldn't? I can imagine how you must feel about yourself. You will see stories throughout this book that you may relate to. Don't judge yourself if you do. Judgment and fear of criticism causes you to worry. When you worry, it creates anxiety, which leads to depression and maybe worse. Anxiety and depression seem to be the new norm. It seems no one knows what to do. Pills and counseling have become the go-to remedies, but they aren't the cure. Mental health awareness is a popular narrative these days, but it just brings attention to the problem, not the cure. We're treating symptoms, not the cause. Judgment is the cause. Letting go of your past and how you view it is the cure. Learning to like yourself, forgiving yourself, and ridding yourself of worrying about what others think is the cure. If you realize why you were judged and you understand why you judge yourself, you can let it go and be free. I'll explain this as we go through this book together. As a parent, I realize it's not my job to pass along my rules, values, and beliefs that set me up to judge. I'm supposed to get rid of myself. I'm supposed to rid myself of judgment so I don't pass it along to my daughter or others in my life. We all run the risk of judging our children and spreading the disease. I still judge other people sometimes, but the difference now is that I catch myself doing it. And when I do catch myself, I stop it. And I remind myself to look for the good in others. For me to see the good in someone else, I must see good in me. I discovered a cure for self-judgment and a fear of criticism. It's a three-step process. The first step is to stop judging others. The second naturally follows. When you stop judging others, you stop judging yourself, or you start judging yourself less. And you feel better about yourself. You become lighter. Third is you become immune to other people's judgment of you. When I became more immune to judgment, the dis-ease began to ease. When I started treating people better, I started treating myself better. That made me feel free. It's that simple. Make these steps a habit. And when you do, you'll find that you judge yourself less. Be careful what you send out because it will come back and hit you in the back of your head. It's called the boomerang effect. As I started to direct more love and acceptance towards others, more love and acceptance came back to me. When we judge others, it's a reflection of how we feel about ourselves. I discovered there is good in me. The judgments I have made over the years created a dis-ease in me that had impacted so many areas of my life. I've now forgiven myself, and I've forgiven those who've hurt me out of their own hurt, judgment, and fear. When you stop judging others, you stop judging yourself. I was surprised how simple it was and how quickly things changed for me. My mission is to help rid others of judgment. If I can get adults to stop judging themselves and others, then they can be freer, and the people they judge will be freer. Then they can free their children from judgment, and they can raise them to be healthier and happier. Their children can grow up to be adults who are healthy and happy, and raise children who are also healthy and happy. I figure it'll only take 1 or 2 generations to help reduce enough judgment to create a better world. That's chapter 1. And then the meditation is from Matthew 7, verse 1 and 2. And it doesn't matter if you have any sort of faith background, any religious background, or if you whether you even believe in God, or it doesn't really matter. I do want you to consider at least what these scriptures from the Bible said. So in this case, Matthew apparently wrote this. And so I want you to at least consider the people that wrote the books in the Bible, what they're trying to say to you that God might be trying to say to you through these words. So at least consider them. And so today's meditation is do not judge, or you too will be judged. For in the same way you judge others, you'll be judged, and with the measure you use, it will be measured to you. Now, you may want to look up what that means. So there's a great website. It's called BibleRef.com. I'll share it with you, and I'll share the links with you for each of these meditations, because this is one that really is misused and misunderstood. It starts. This is the NIV version, but the normal version, the most used version, it says "judge not," and so those first 2 words are misused. So listen, this whole chapter is not about not judging. Period. Never judging. Okay. This chapter is about judging people based on your rules, values, and beliefs. Okay. We do need to be judgmental. Of course, we have to make judgment calls, but generally, our use of judgment is, in the case of this chapter, it's something that was learned. You know, we got set up at a very early age to judge ourselves because we weren't following the rules and values and the things that were laid down for us. And listen, you could have wonderful parents, you know, that have wonderful values and stuff like that, but they're not you. And sometimes the rules and values and things you were expected to do just didn't sit well with you. You might have fought back when you were little, you know, and if you fought back, then you probably got a lot of resistance. You might have got in trouble. And every time you were little and you tried to speak up and exercise your own personal power and be yourself, generally you kind of, you know, you got squashed, or you were made to feel small or quiet. And when it comes to judgment, don't judge yourself that you're judging. Okay, so it's not your fault if you're judgmental towards other people. Okay, it's not your fault that you're judgmental towards yourself. It's just something you learned. Okay, judging yourself for being judgmental, that's like judging yourself for the language you speak, or judging yourself for the food that you like. Those are all just learned behaviors. Okay, it's all learned. Most of the stuff that's tripped you up is all just learned. Okay, some of it is kind of messed up, you know, in my case for sure, and maybe in your case. But just remember that this whole concept of judgment, it did set you up to judge yourself and start asking some questions. You know, what's wrong with me? There's a number of chapters we're going to cover where judgment comes back in. So this whole concept of judgment is one of the most important chapters in the book. And throughout this, you're going to see it come up for you. Okay. So just remember, though, this concept of judgment, judging you and judging others, it actually erodes your self-image. Okay. So if you're judgmental towards yourself, you're eroding your self-image, and you're coming up with a mistaken viewpoint of yourself. I mean, what a dumb game if you were taught to judge and it's just becomes something you do, and it just becomes an automatic habitual response. You're probably your judgment, or your viewpoint, that you make your judgment from is probably distorted. And so, what a dumb game that we're playing. So, we really want to begin practicing this idea of stop judging. And it starts with stop judging others. That's the starting point. Okay. So, because it's learned and because it's a habit, if we can just form the habit of not judging others or judging people less, and we become like aware of it, right? Like we're consciously aware of it. This is all about awareness. We consciously become aware that we're not judging or we're judging less. That becomes the habit. That becomes the norm. And by putting that out, you get a lot of good back. But because it becomes a habit, you judge yourself less. And you actually become a lot more aware that you're judging yourself, where you can catch yourself and stop it. Another chapter in the book is called Stop It. All right. And so this is a real important, I put this chapter, in fact, when I wrote the book, even before I wrote the book, I was going to write a whole book just on judgment alone, because I think fundamentally judgment is the biggest problem we have in the world, in pretty much every area. Okay. All right. So we are going to grab your pen and your workbook or the back of the book or your journal or whatever, and we're going to go through the action sets. Let me just explain them to you real quick, so you're crystal clear on what I want you to answer, and only answer my questions and nothing more. All right. So on page 33. All right. With this chapter, the action is your first step is to stop judging. So all I want you to do is real quick, whatever you can think of. It's a brainstorm. It's not an overthinking session. Just jot down as many things that you can think of that you judge yourself for. You know, I judge myself because I don't eat properly. I judge myself so I don't get up early in the morning. I judge myself because I'm hard on my children. I judge myself, and just make a list of everything you can think of right now in the moment that you judge yourself for. Okay. So make that list first. That's the first thing you're going to do. And just give yourself, take about a couple minutes to do that. Do give it a bit of thought, because the last two steps of the action step are only going to take you literally 30 seconds each. Okay, so you got about 5 or 7 minutes to think this through. So make your list. Okay, think of as many things as you can. Don't worry about how long it is. Don't judge yourself because you have a long list. Okay, don't do that. All right. Just get it all out, everything you can think of, get it all out of you and onto the sheet of paper. In some cases, just by jotting down the things you judge yourself for and putting it onto paper, getting it out of you and onto paper, you may get rid of it just with that single step. Okay, so we want to kind of just bring it all up, literally, not literally, but kind of like vomit it all up. Just get it all up, get it out, and get it onto this sheet of paper. Okay, next, look down that list and pick one thing from your list, all right, and decide you're going to practice letting go of each day. Okay, just look at your list. You're only going to practice one. Okay, and so pick one thing that you're going to practice letting go of each day, and you'll be surprised. The one you pick, it might take you a week to let it go. It might take you a month to let it go. You're going to become an observer. But what'll happen is, as you get rid of one, others are going to start to fall away. So it's not like you're going to have to work on this list for the next 20 years, folks. A lot of it's just going to fall away. Okay, but I want you to just pick one that you're going to practice letting go of each day. All right. And then lastly, make a list of the people in your life whom you judge. Okay, so make a list of the people in your life whom you judge. It could be coworkers, family members, children. Hell, you're probably still judging people that are dead. Some of you might still be judging your parents and your grandparents, or I don't know, maybe a coworker, 15 years ago, she blah, blah, blah. Just, you're going to have people in the past that you're still judging. They're not even in your life anymore. Right. So just think of the people who comes to mind. And so just think of who you think of throughout your days. Right. Make that list. And then I just want you to, again, pick one person, highlight it, underline it, but decide on one person, and you're going to pick them, and you're going to no longer judge them, and you're going to practice that each day, starting today. So you're going to pick one person. We're all going to do an experiment. I'll come to the action step later. Okay, we're going to do an experiment, and this is the one person you are going to practice not judging anymore. Okay, so we'll come to the action step a little bit later. So as you practice this first step, pay attention to what you say and think to yourself about yourself and correct yourself. Just practice looking for the good in people. Treat others the way you want to be treated. Okay? All right, Alex, we ready to go with the music? And we're going to give you guys about 7 minutes to complete this exercise. When you're done, just use the reactions button and raise your hand so we can see how you're progressing, because some chapters are a little faster than others, but we want to kind of see the pace that we're taking. So just once you're done, put your pen down, raise your hand, and then we'll come back.